Hey, what's happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. The following segment is an interview I did with Rollie Peterkin. Rollie Peterkin is a former Wall Street bond trader turned mixed martial artist, traveler, adventurer. He's the author of The Cage, Escaping the American Dream. And he also has a great podcast called The Divergent Path. Really interesting and wise individual. I hope you guys enjoy this segment. All right, Rollie. So I guess the first question for you is, can you talk about like your life and pretty much like who you are?
Yeah. So I was a collegiate wrestler. I wrestled for the University of Pennsylvania, Division I. I was a 3-time NCAA qualifier and like in the round of 12, so like the top 12 in the country. But, you know, always fell a little bit short of the national podium. And I wrestled since I was like 7 years old. It was like my whole life. I was a national champion in high school 2 times. And like, it was just something that I was so passionate about my whole life. I really loved it. And, you know, like I said, I was in the round of 12 3 times. And so I just never really like accomplished my goals in college. I wanted to be, you know, national champ or just make it to the national podium. And so I was always just one match shy of that. And yeah, I mean, after, like, as you probably know, after you finish wrestling, it's not like other sports where there's really like a professional league to go to.
Right.
You know, you can go try to make the Olympics and, you know, that's like a, you know, a huge commitment. It's like, you know, the top guy in the country, like it was one guy per weight class. And so it's kind of like, I think it's the dilemma that a lot of wrestlers face. You know, you finish your career and it's just this thing, you know, that was there for me my whole life. This whole, like, this gave me drive and direction. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, now it's done. And
yeah,
I was fortunate enough to get a job for a Wall Street bank. You know, I went to Penn and I went to the Wharton Business School there. So like I was, you know, some alumni helped me out. We have a good alumni network and everything like that. So it was like everything was going great. You know, it was like in a way, you know, like I was sad that I didn't accomplish my goals in college, but like on paper, it was like this is kind of the dream, you know?
Yeah, you were doing well. The American dream, pretty much, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was, I had no right to complain about anything. And, but you know, as I was working, I missed wrestling. I missed it. I missed the kind of like the competitive nature of it. As I said, it kind of always gave me like a direction, you know, like you, no matter what's going on in your life, you kind of check those feelings at the edge of the mat every day and work hard and get past it. And so, you know, I was missing it, and I actually went and like one day just like randomly was like, I'm going to go wrestle at this like open tournament. And I was like, you know, I hadn't even been training. I was kind of fat and everything like that. It was like a tough tournament too. It was a tournament I never had won before. And I went there and I trained just like a few times or whatever, and I won it. It was the Northeast Regionals, it's called.
Nice.
And so by winning, I qualified for like the World Team Trials, like a big deal tournament in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And and I went and I got my ass kicked, but it was kind of like it kind of reawakened that
fire
inside of me. Yeah, the fire, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. So working in Wall Street, so not accomplishing all your wrestling goals, it kind of like haunted you, right? Pretty much. And something was like compelling you to do something competitive again and just something along those lines.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like it was a combination of things. I think it didn't help that I was sitting down in front of a computer for like 12 hours out of the day. And like, you know, I felt like I was really cooped up and I wasn't really satisfied with my job. And I mean, I was passionate about it. I was actually really interested in finance, and I was doing well. Like I was working really hard and I was doing well. And I was like a bond trader, like a corporate bond trader. And so like I was about to get my own portfolio. I was working for like a a Wall Street bank, so it was going well, but there was something missing really, and it was that combination of like I said, I missed the competition and like the kind of grind, and and I was just sitting there, and I kind of I was unsatisfied, but I didn't know what. And actually, it's funny. I always forget about this detail, but like, I went on vacation to Peru, right? And so that's like kind of kicks off the next part of the story.
Okay.
Before that, I was like unsatisfied, and I was like, what's missing? And so at one point, I remember I went around shopping for motorcycles. I thought, okay. I'll get a motorcycle.
I went there too. I gave up on that though. I had 2 incidents, but continue.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think it's kind of this, like, I felt cooped up, and I felt like I needed some adventure and some other things in my life. And so that seemed like kind of the thing, like, okay, this is a risky thing.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, I'm glad I didn't do it. That's about the most risky thing that you can do. As you had 2 accidents on motorcycles?
Yeah, I had 2 incidents. Nothing crazy, but actually, I got thrown off the bike like at low speed, and I landed on my back. I didn't have a helmet on at the time. And then another time I had like a patch of oil, and I almost kind of like I lost control of the bike, but I corrected it. But long story short, like it was kind of like, so you get like these signs, and it's like, all right, like this is not good, it's not worth it. But but the thrill of it, I get what you're saying. Even me, like I know you went deep into MMA and stuff like that, but I used to train for a long time, and I understand completely. It's like you're almost like a superhero. It's like a fight club. Like you go do something that is a part of you, and the one-on-one competition aspect, and then it's like when you don't do that no more, it's like something's missing, and it just like eats at you.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. And yeah, that's crazy. I'm glad you're all right with the motorcycle. I mean, that's like
thank you.
I've always said, like I fought in the cage in South America. I've done all this crazy. I've run with the bulls. I've done this crazy stuff. And I feel like riding a motorcycle is the most dangerous thing that's socially acceptable in modern society.
It's so nuts. Crazy. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. But continue, Rollie. Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's good. So I had that life. I was committed to it. I even, one summer with my colleagues, got a house on the Jersey Shore and blah blah blah. The whole like yuppie New York thing. And so I had this friend Ben, who is just an amazing guy. He wrestled at Penn with me as well. He was a heavyweight, big guy, and he's always been involved in charities. He did like Big Brother, Big Sister. He's like just the nicest human I've ever met, I think. And he, after college, moved down to Peru and was working in this village, like doing this like charity, teaching kids English. And he started training some jiu-jitsu and boxing down there, and then he just like started fighting just on a whim. And he became like this famous fighter down there. He fought like I think by the time I like went down there, he was like 15-0 or something like that. And
that's pretty cool.
He had like won like the local league down there. And so I went down to visit him, and we traveled around Peru. We went to Machu Picchu and all this stuff. And I'm telling you, like he was getting stopped on the street, asked for autographs.
Wow.
Like, it was like that. And as I got to, I actually eventually moved down there, but like. I'm getting ahead of myself, but like, yeah, Ben is like on TV in Peru all the time. Like he's
wow, that's
famous.
Crazy.
He's like, dude, he started his own charities down there, and he's like, he went like full native. He married a Peruvian woman.
That's awesome.
And like, yeah, so he's
wow.
Ben's a great guy. So went down to visit him, did the whole thing, and on our last day down there, we went into the gym that he trains at, and we trained with his team, and there's a guy named Ivan Iberico who's like the coach down there, and he's a legendary. Like in Peru, since then, this was years ago, and since then I've been traveling in other countries and whatever. I'm like, I will meet someone from Peru and say like, oh yeah, I trained with the Ivan Iberico, and they're like, oh, the Pitbull. Like, of course I know people. He's kind of like, maybe not to the exact extent, but like Manny Pacquiao in the Philippines is like this legendary guy. Like,
right.
Maybe not at that level, but like he's pretty legendary in Peru.
Okay.
He was an MMA fighter. He fought like even before the days of like, you know, where they was fighting bare knuckle in the back of a
Valley
bar.
Tudo, like old school.
Exactly, Valley Tudo. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. He's, you know, he says his records, I think, like 40 something and 2.
Damn.
But, you know, like only like 15 of those fights are like on the share dog because he's like,
yeah.
Like, they were like in the back of a bar.
Yeah, that's what Chris Lido said. I had the honor like to talk to Chris Lido one time, and I like read off his record. He's like, actually, it's more than that. He was like, he said something like 60 something 70 fights. I'm like, what the heck? And he said just what you said. Like a lot of them
that were fighting in the 90s. Yeah,
yeah. He said they were not counted like in bars and just weird places. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's the early days. I mean, we kind of take for granted, you know, like we think about like modern MMA, but like it wasn't. I mean, even in the early days of the UFC, it was bare knuckle.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I mean, I remember I was talking to this guy Yvonne once, and I was like saying like, you know, did they allow hair pulling? He's like, yeah, of course. You know, you could knee to the groin, you could do everything.
Nut shots,
I mean,
yeah.
Like, yeah, and there was no time limit, and it was just like the last man standing wins.
Crazy.
So yeah, so I went and trained with him on the last day there, and this guy doesn't speak any English. He looks like you know the actor Danny Trejo.
Yeah.
Like, grizzled. Yeah, he's kind of got that grizzled like this guy's tough.
You don't want to mess with him. Look, yeah.
yeah. And so I wrestled with him, and he had done wrestling growing up, and he went to Cuba and Venezuela and stuff, and he trained with these other guys. But in general, the level of wrestling in all of South America is pretty low compared to the United States. And so we kind of like started wrestling, and I just whooped his ass. Like I was like throwing him and doing all this stuff, and so he was like, I thought he was gonna be like pissed, but he's one of these guys. He was like excited.
Yeah.
He like jumped up every time, and he was like, that was amazing, you know. And he doesn't speak any English, but he's like Ben's translating, and so. We had like a great time. I showed some wrestling to like a bunch of guys in the gym, and then he takes me out for he's like, you know, I have to go to the airport like later that day, but he's like, come to the bar with me first. So we get to the bar, and it's me and this guy Yvonne, and he orders like a few bottles of Johnny Walker Black. There was bottles, and he just starts downing them with me. Just him and I just like kind of like cheersing and just downing them.
Nice.
And he's looking at me in my eyes, and he's translating with Ben. And he's just saying like, I can tell you still have the itch to compete. I can tell you still want to compete. You're going to come down here and you're going to fight MMA for us. And I'm like, dude, that's crazy. I have a Wall Street job. What are you talking about? That's crazy.
Yep.
And yeah, he just kept going, and we just got drunk. And long story short, I don't even remember getting on the airplane.
What? What the heck? Like to come back?
Yeah, that was like we were like meeting before the flight back.
Yep.
We drank like a whole bottle of whiskey between the two of us. And, and the whole time he's just like, he's kind of like a mischievous child. He's like looking at me like, you're gonna come down here and fight MMA. I know you're
rubbing his chin.
What's that?
And like rubbing his chin, like, you'll be back. You'll be back.
Yeah, devious, you know. And so, you know, I get home and I get back to my job, and I'm kind of settling in. And it just kind of stuck in my mind. And I was like, man, this is something I could do. You know, I'm still young. I don't have a family to support. Like, you know, there's only one time in your life you can do something like this.
Right.
And I know that, like, a lot of the guys I knew on Wall Street had a kind of similar dream, right? So you know a lot of guys, and they say, you know, I hate this job, but, you know, one day I'm going to quit and I'm going to start, like, a charter fishing company. Or one day I'm going to quit and I'm just going to go coach my like high school football team. That's my dream, you know, something like that. And, you know, they say this for 20 years and it never happens.
They never jump.
Yeah, you get the golden handcuffs. You kind of get addicted to the lifestyle of like, okay, I'm making this much money now, and next year I'll probably be making more. And by the way, I just put a down payment on a house, and then like, you know, got to get a nice car to keep up the appearances. And so like, I just kind of saw these guys that were older, and I just thought like, you know, some of these guys in the industry, I was like, that's not what I want to be one day. And I knew, I was like, I only have one chance to do this. It's now or never. And so it was a really, really difficult decision. I went back and forth, talked to a lot of people, but I started kind of planning. I started like, okay, like let's figure out the logistics of this, behind the scenes. I started telling people, I told my parents, blah, blah, blah. A few months
How did that go?
I quit my job. What's that?
How did that go? Telling your family and friends, like, I'm just going to go fight, you know, mixed martial arts at Vale Tudo.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were, well, I would say with my friends first, like, people were divided. Like, half of my friends were like, that's so cool, go do it, it's amazing, live your dream. And the other half were like, dude, you're throwing your life away, what are you doing? You have a good job. Like, are you an idiot?
Yep.
And my parents were obviously very upset. They were upset not just because I was quitting a good job and like, you know, like they were like, why don't you just go travel or something? Like, why do you do this? Why do you have to go fight?
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, like, it's cage fighting in South America. So it's,
that's just wild.
About as extreme as you can get.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's
yeah, so they were upset about it for sure.
Which is, I mean, it's kind of expected because, like, when you're like, most people are not going to understand, like, even if it's your family, like, if you're cut from a certain cloth and you got this certain itch you got to scratch, like, you're just going to get that opposition, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, I definitely understand it. I think I would be the same way.
Yeah.
If I had a kid doing the same thing, but.
For sure, for sure. But
I knew I was going to do it no matter what.
So Rollie, so what happened next? So you made the jump and you went back to Peru, and did you start training, you know, like jiu-jitsu and different things?
Yeah. So before I went down there, I actually, while I was kind of in this planning stage, I joined Renzo Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in New York.
Nice.
Like, as soon as I got back from Peru, I was like, okay, I'll join that. And then I started boxing at Church Street Boxing, and I had never really like thrown a punch before. I mean, you know, never sober at least. And, and so, yeah, like I was doing like 2 or 3 days a week, you know, but that was just for a few months. So basically when I got down to Peru, you know, I knew like the very basics of boxing and jiu-jitsu, but like not really. I mean, the wrestling helps a lot in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Positioning and...
But in striking, yeah, it doesn't do anything for you. It hurts you really.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I trained a little bit, but when I got down there, I was still in pretty bad shape. Like I just remember like the first few practices and everything like that. Like I mean, I was having trouble
puking.
And I mean, there was a weird situation they had down there where we had 3 practices a day and they were mandatory. And we were actually getting like a stipend from, they had this is really rare and really strange that it happened in Peru, but there was a really rich guy who kind of funded this gym, and we had a chef.
That's awesome.
We had like we get paid, and we had to be there for every practice, so it was mandatory. And so it was like this, I mean, it was 2 or 3 times every single day, except for Sundays, sparring on Saturdays. And so I got down there and like I was just thrown right into it. There's no like shallow end, dip my toe in. It was like, here you are, you're ready to go. I mean, I think I sparred the first week I was down there with guys.
Wow.
Who, by the way, there was this gym and they had all the best fighters from Peru kind of came to this gym because it was like the best setup and the best coach there. And so just to give you an idea of this gym, right? So there were 5 like of the kind of like full-time professional fighters there. There were other guys that were like these, you know, that were like came in and everything like that. But like of the core group, there were 5 of us, including me. 3 of them fight in the UFC right now, and 1 of them fights in Bellator.
Wow, that's crazy. So talent, like good talent. Holy crap.
Yeah, I mean, for a small gym in Peru, it's insane. At the time, no one fought in anything. It was just in the local league down there when I was there. But now they've all gone on. I'm the only one who like hasn't, you know, fought in the big leagues of them all. But it was, you know, like, and I was sparring with these guys from like day one. You know, like I'm going in there like just feeling like I'm drowning, doing like 3-minute rounds or something like that.
Yeah.
With these guys that are like already had 10 professional fights.
Right.
20 years old or something, you know?
That's crazy. So I sorry to cut you off, Rollie, but I got a couple of questions. So like, what was like the sparring environment like? Were they going balls to the wall, or were they going like 40%, 50% so you could learn, or were they just wailing on you?
Well, we, let's see. So most days we did just in the room. Like I said, on Saturday we had sparring where we'd go in early and we had a cage in the gym. So we'd go in early, you know, we'd put the shin pads on and like the gloves and the whole thing. And that was like full sparring on Saturday. That was like, you know, wailing on people. Like obviously, whatever. I mean, there were a few times I got dropped. I mean, I never got knocked unconscious, but like, I probably got some
Tweety birds and.
Yeah.
Oh
exactly.
man, yeah.
But the thing is, even like most days in sparring, like they would always say like 30%, but it was never really 30%.
Yeah,
like,
no, never.
Put the shin pads on and go, and it was all like we were all really close. There was no animosity with anyone. It was all like it was all friendly, but you know we were just all competitive guys. So we would even with jiu-jitsu, like we didn't like focus on a ton of technique.
Yeah.
But we just went like full, we would just go like live every day for hours, and so like it's weird to this day. Like I don't have like with jiu-jitsu and this other stuff. I don't have great technique, but I have great feel. And I'm like I don't have great I don't know. People are like this like umapalata, blah blah blah.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm like I don't know what that is, but I'll defend it.
Yep. Wow, that's crazy. But it's funny with the sparring thing. You're so right, because it's like, oh yeah, light sparring, and then once somebody gets a good shot in, then he just start going back and forth, and he gets all crazy. It's freaking hilarious.
It kind of goes like that, exactly. You know, it's always like it's kind of. I mean, it's hard. Just like it's hard to keep it something at 30%.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if I go 30% and you go 30%, then you go 35%. I'm like, dude, I don't want you beating me. I got to keep up. I'm going to go 35, and then you go 40, and then you just ratchets up like that, right?
Right. So Rollie, like, how long until you had your first MMA bout down there, and like, were you like excited, or were you nervous or indifferent about it?
So this is crazy. So like I got down there, like I said, we're training every day. I'm still getting into shape. I'm still learning to box. I'm like, I can barely throw a punch, doing all this stuff. And 21 days after I arrived down there.
Holy crap.
I'm like, by the way, I'm kind of like hurt all the time because I'm just, you know, I went from like, I was like 2 or 3 years of like sedentary life. I wasn't even really working out.
Yeah.
And I'm getting back into this. And so like, I had twisted my ankle, and I was kind of like, I was bruised all over, and I was like hurting. And I remember we were hosting a series of amateur fights at the gym. So it was kind of like a smoker, really. But like it's full, like it's an amateur fight. You have like a ref and all this stuff, and we have a cage there, and there's people come. But like, so my coach V.I.P.N, who I told you was just this tough dude. I mean, he's just really like, he's this guy, like he has no excuses. He is as tough as nails, and he expects everyone else to be tough as nails. It's just kind of like, there's no arguing with him. He's just one of these guys. He says something and you just do it. And so he tells me, like, I'm there like going for a run in the morning or whatever. And he says it's on, I think it's Saturday, and they had canceled the sparring that day, and he's like, Rollie, you're gonna fight in the amateur fights tonight. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Holy crap.
And again, it's all through a translator because I didn't speak Spanish at the time. And he's like, you're going to fight today. I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, no. He's like, yeah, you are. I'm like, no. I can't. I'm hurt. And I'm like, I just got here. I don't know anything. He's like, you'll be fine. Just go. And you know, like he just is so insistent. And I was so nervous. I mean, I think it's actually a good thing that I didn't have time to prepare to be nervous, because in general at the time, fighting really scared the crap out of me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, because it was one of these things that I would see on TV, like the UFC, and I would see them and I'd say like, man, those guys are crazy. I would see Frankie Edgar fight. I'd say like, man, that guy's so tough. I'm not like 1/10. I'm not like 1/100th as tough as that guy. And so it was kind of like appealing to me because it kind of scared me. But this first fight, he was just like, you're going to fight. It was in like 3 hours or 4 hours or something. So
were you even in shape like cardio wise? Because like when I talk to people, like people who've never competed or trained or done any grappling, like it's like they don't understand how important cardio is. Like it's like probably the most important thing when it comes to like wrestling, jujitsu, and you know, MMA and stuff like that. How was your cardio?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it was not good. No, I mean,
oh my God,
I was working a lot. I mean, it was getting better. And when I was in New York, I had started to work out a little bit, and I lost weight. I mean, I was kind of fat before, but I shed like 20 pounds, and like just from training hard. And I was doing like, I mean, I was in like, you know, I was in above average shape, but was I in MMA shape? No, I think the rounds were 3-minute rounds though, because it was an amateur fight, and it was like, I think it was 3-minute rounds, and yeah, I mean, the answer is no, I wasn't in good shape. I was tired as shit. You know, like you said, you know, people don't, you could be a marathon runner or like a, you know, the best of the shape. Like
it's a different thing. Yeah.
Like that. But wrestling and MMA is a totally different, totally, it's your whole body. I mean, when you're out there, your whole body is tense. Your shoulders, your forearms, your calves, your hips, your stomach. I mean, you're like really using every little bit of your body. And so when you finish a bout, I mean, even if you're in top shape, you see like in the UFC, right? You see these guys that are in the greatest shape ever, and they finish and they can't get off the ground. They're lying there. It's a lot, and the adrenaline, the emotions, and everything like that as well.
Yeah, it's like the fight this past weekend with Khabib and Gaethje. Like I saw criticisms online. People are like, "Oh, how did Gaethje get so tired?" And it's like, cause he's fending off takedowns, and he's like, Khabib's with the pressure. Khabib's with the pressure coming for like. It's like they don't understand, you know. But you know, it's so draining.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, even just like a few minutes of it is exhausting.
Oh,
I mean, title fight, it's like 25 minutes. It just is beyond my comprehension how people can survive that. But
insanity.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, total insanity. But okay, Roddy. Sorry, I keep cutting you off. So your first bout. So you were nervous. You were kind of glad you weren't overthinking it. So what happened next?
Yeah, so I strapped up. I went in that day, and I kind of just wrestled. Like I just took the guy down a bunch of times, kind of wailed on him. It was, you know, it's like no elbows, and so it was a pretty like tight rule set. It's like somewhere between sparring and an amateur fight, really. But it's guys from different gyms and everything. And you know, I wailed on him. I won the fight in the last like 30 seconds of the fight. I think I went in for like a shot, and I just got like an uppercut, like right to the face, just straight bam.
Wow.
And you know, my whole lip swelled up and it was bleeding, but I finished the takedown and I finished on top, and I won the fight.
Nice.
And I remember just like having my bloody face and being like so happy. I remember my teammate came over afterwards with a towel and was like, "Let me wipe this off," and I was like, No, leave it on. I want to look tough in the pictures.
That's so funny.
That was it.
Wow, that's crazy. So once you had your first bout, were you kind of like hooked? Were you thinking like, man, I want to go in there again?
I mean, I don't know if hooked is the right word, but I was definitely excited. I was definitely like, that is cool. I was so happy that I did it. I was so happy with the whole experience. And like, I had, by that time, I'd gotten my first professional bout scheduled. So like, it was just like, bam, I think, okay, so I got there February 1st, and that was like February 20, whatever. And then my professional bout was like the beginning of April. So like, it was already on the books or whatever. And then my coach Yvonne did the craziest thing. Like, and 2 weeks later, he goes, "You're fighting again today in another amateur fight." Or like, I think he gave me a few days notice this time, but like, whatever. And it was kind of the same thing. I wrestled and I did my thing, and then I got punched really hard in the third round. I think it was just a straight, just boom. And this time I got a black eye, but you know, it was cool. It was like, I was really proud of the experience. I was really proud. It was one of the most transformative periods of my life, because here I am. I've never really traveled that much. I'm living in Peru. I'm around a bunch of people that don't speak English. I'm living in a different country. I'm getting used to that. learning a whole new sport. I'm jumping into this thing, and this is this crazy. Like, it's when I think back on it, it's just this whirlwind of like so many different emotions all the time.
So much growth, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you talk about like leaving your comfort zone. Like, man, it was like, I mean, it was like I just blasted off on a rocket ship and left my comfort zone in a different galaxy. I mean, it was just constant discomfort down there.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, it was a huge period of growth for me.
Yeah, that's just wild, man. Just being in a different country and not knowing the language so well it's like that's difficult enough, and then you're fighting in a cage. I mean, geez.
Yep.
So Rollie, like, as you went forward in your mixed martial arts career, did you deal with like anxiety and like if you did have fear, but did you deal with that better? Like, how did you overcome stuff like that, those feelings?
Well, I think it's interesting. Like, I think, I've wrestled, I think, somewhere like 800 matches in my life. So like I've wrestled a lot, and I've wrestled in big matches. I've wrestled in front of thousands of people. And, I was always anxious, but of course it's natural. Like, if you're not anxious, you're a psychopath.
Yeah, or a robot.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's natural to have it there. And so, but for MMA, it was really different. It was really a different feeling. Like, and I mean, I don't know. Like, I think because it was just like, you never know when you're out there. You could get like a shin to your face. You can get knocked out. You can get like your teeth knocked out. You can get like seriously hurt. It was something more out of my control. Like, wrestling, it was always I could lose, and that would be like, I mean, wrestling, it's upsetting. It's really upsetting, more than most other sports. A loss. It's more personal. But MMA, like I don't think I didn't fight a lot. Like, I've interviewed a lot of guys on my podcast that fought 30, 40 fights or something like that, and I'm like, that's crazy, But I haven't fought that many times. But no, like, I mean, I still scared the crap out of me. Yeah, I remember I think it was before my first professional fight, but maybe it was another one. It doesn't matter. But I was speaking of motorcycles, my friend Ben had a motorcycle down there, and we used to ride it to and from practice every day. And I was on the back of it once, and it was like days before a fight. And I just remember like being so dreading the fight and just being so scared about it, and just thinking, I hope this motorcycle crashes and I get hurt and I can't compete. And like, it was like, this is like an easy way out, and I save face, Yeah. Like, people would say like, well, why didn't you just not do it then? And it's like, no, I need to save face. Like, I don't want to be like I don't want to be a wuss.
You don't want to punk out, yeah.
It's such an irrational thing, because you think about like the injury that you sustain on a motorcycle would be 10 times worse than anything that could happen.
Yeah. It's funny, Rollie, because I don't know if you ever heard of Cowboy Cerrone talk about this, and he says similar things. Like, before every fight, he's like trying to figure out ways to get out of it. And this is like a super high level professional, like right now these days, in the back saying like, fuck, like, how do I get out of this? That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of the toughest, like scrappiest dudes too.
For sure. Yeah. Yep. GSP says the same things.
You've heard other fighters talk about it. Like when GSP was on Joe Rogan, he was saying that if he fights twice a year, he said the 2 worst days of his life are like the nights before both of those fights. He was like, it's awful. He's like, it's the worst feeling. There's no such thing. And that's GSP, the greatest, one of the greatest ever. Yeah,
arguably the GOAT.
No that feeling, I don't think. I've heard some people say that they don't feel that level of fear, and I mean, great, but I think most people do, and it's natural.
Yeah, and guys like GSP, they talk about how like I think Fedor has touched on this too, but they say that they actually use it. They use the fear, and it's like it's a good thing, because your body's like more on like high alert, and you could do like superhuman things with the fear, like like your body's ready for like battle, like, so it's kind of, they channel it, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think I did some like later on I became a coach for this thing called Wrestling Mindset, where they do like sports psychology and mindset for wrestling, and then for MMA as well. And they have a whole curriculum based on it's awesome. But like, so I put a lot of thought into this, and I think that there's a certain level that you want to achieve. Like if you're too anxious, there's some people who get to the point where they are too anxious and they burn way too much nervous energy beforehand, and they put too much pressure on themselves, and they're not able to perform. They're not able to take risks. They put too much importance on it, and so it can be very detrimental. But you're right. You want to have some. I mean, it's important. It drives you. It's natural. It's like a fight or flight response. Like there's a reason why we have adrenaline. There's a reason why we have cortisol and these things. Like because it's natural. If you're under threat, you want to be able to rise to the occasion and perform. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something that is natural. I mean, I think the best way to combat it is just to train more. I mean, I think the more you train, the more comfortable you are, the more confident you are, and the better you'll feel going into it. And like, I think that like one of the things for me that like I guess the big point that I was kind of afraid of was like I said, getting knocked out or getting an elbow or whatever. And you know, I was never like really like a top striker, but you know, if I spent way more time in the room boxing and working on those things, I think I would have felt like a lot better. Yeah. And it would have been more like kind of a wrestling match where, like I said, I'm afraid that it's not an existential thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's about being able to achieve that balance. And like what I would always tell my students when I was coaching the mindset thing was that when you go into, you know, if you're wrestling in the state championship or whatever, like a lot of coaches, a lot of high school coaches or parents or anything, you know, they mean well, but they don't know. They're not giving good advice when they tell you like, this is it. This is the biggest tournament of your life. Do or die. You know, it's all or none here. Like go all out. And it's like, no, that's not the best way to think about it. The best way to think about it is this is something you do every day. You've done it every day. You've done it hundreds of times. You've practiced this. This is just like any other day. You know, it's any other match. You should go really hard if you're wrestling the JV guy or if you're wrestling the national champion. You should wrestle the same. You should wrestle hard and you know, have that confidence in the training you've done. Go out there and do it. It's not. It's great advice. It's not different. You don't treat people different going into a big fight or a match or anything like that. You just you want to do normal. If you eat oatmeal for breakfast every day, eat oatmeal that day. Like that's the craziest thing that people, a lot of people do is they have a special routine for the game day. It's like, no, do the same thing you do every day because that's what you're used to. You normalize it. Yeah. It, like, don't make things bigger than what they are pretty much. Right. Yeah. I mean, just be comfortable, find some comfort in your routine for sure. So, Rollie, I kind of have like a little bit of a deep question for you. So who's been your biggest inspiration in your life? I mean, man, I've had so many. I would say that one guy who I think is, I mean, there's so many to choose from, but in this story particularly, my friend Ben Ryder is someone who he was the guy who was in Peru that brought me down there, and he came fighting, and he actually wound up fighting in Bellator eventually. And now he's back in Philadelphia, and he has his whole family there, and he's working for a charity called Beat the Streets, which does, I don't know if you've heard of Beat the Streets, it was wrestling. It sounds familiar, yeah. Yeah, in tough areas, they create wrestling programs, and like, and he's just someone who is just so inspirational to me. Like everything he ever thinks about is how to help people. That's awesome. Whether it's like underprivileged children or like a friend. Like just as a friend, like if you were to like tally up the things he's done for me, like I'm so in his debt. I mean, he's helped me in so many ways. And like, wow. If you, you know, I think he just taught me so much about what it is to be a good person, a good friend, but also like, he's someone, he works incredibly hard in anything he does, no excuses. And I'm someone who, like, I mean, I don't want to say I have a lot of excuses, but I complain a lot, you know, like I think a lot of us do, right? Like, yeah, for sure. Like, no, I hate this, I hate that. He's someone who, like, he could be in the worst situation and he would just kind of put his nose down and do it. You wouldn't hear a word from him. And that's something that I really admire deeply.
Wow, sounds like a special guy. That's yeah. Vitor Belfort, I mean, he said something one time. He said like live life with no excuses, and that one kind of stuck with me. But yeah, Ben, right? Like, he sounds like a great guy. Great guy to have in your corner.
Yeah, he's awesome. And actually, he and I, have been talking a lot recently. He's like doing some, like I said, beat the streets. And he is, he's doing amazing things. So definitely him.
That's great. I'm glad we got people like that in the world left, you know? So Rollie, do you have any crazy stories like in your travels, like in Peru or anywhere else?
Man, so many. I mean, so I finished my year in Peru, and I traveled all around. And in my book, I have I talk about some of the crazy experiences I had down there. I went to, like Cusco was basically more or less where Machu Picchu is.
Okay.
And like went on this hike and met this old guy, and he was like, "Hey, I'm coming tomorrow." We were at like some old Incan ruins and like the Temple of the Moon, and he was just like, "Hey, tomorrow night I was gonna come back here at midnight for the full moon ceremony and like take San Pedro, which is like this like hallucinogenic." And he's like, "Do you want to come?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And so me and my buddy just like went and met this random dude, this older guy, like went up there, and we're like, he's gonna gut us and eat us and
thinking all the worst. Yeah.
But it was like the most amazing time. We're up like in these Incan ruins, and we go through like the woods to these like other ruins, which are not even like there's not even like a path to go to them. It's not like a tourist destination. They're like literally just like hidden on top of this mountain, and there's just caves.
That's crazy.
And, it was just like, and we're on this like this San Pedro, and like it was just, I mean, it was just something else. And
was it like a spiritual? Was it like a spiritual experience at all? Did you feel anything, or must have been eerie, right?
Spiritual, but I would say deeply meaningful. And I mean, when I think back, if you were to ask me now, like, what are some of the most meaningful experiences of your life, or like, fun nights, it was that, it felt like I was like in a movie, like just this, like exploring these crazy Incan ruins and like the middle of the, like climbing over cactuses and eucalyptus branches and into like, these caves, which are like not unexplored, but like, inaccessible normally.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was a really, really cool moment. And
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, and then I did another trip up in the jungle in Iquitos, Peru, which is the largest city in the world, which is inaccessible by roads. You have to fly there, take a boat there, and it's like really, it's like a city from Indiana Jones or something like that. And we went on this like took this boat up the Amazon. Like some of my friends were visiting from the States, and we went up there, and you go like 5 hours up the Amazon in the middle of fucking nowhere.
That's insane, man. There's so many things that could kill you in the Amazon. Jesus.
Dude, yeah, we were on this, like, there was like 5 of us and this guide, 2 guides, and they're like indigenous. They're like these tribes that live out there, like literally like live in huts. There's like along the banks, there's like a few huts or something like that. And you're like way far away from, you're hours away from like cell phone service or a hospital or something like that.
Jeez.
And we camped out, and there were mosquitoes everywhere. And like at one point, the guy, he takes a little canoe at night with a flashlight, and he's like, "We're gonna catch an alligator." And it's like, what are you talking about? And he like sees one. He like sees one, like he sees the eyes of the thing, paddles over, like reaches down with his bare hands, grabs like a little caiman out of the water. It's like, it's like 3 or 4 feet, but like, you could take your hand off.
Yeah.
And
holy crap!
And we went fishing for piranhas. And it was cool, man. It was a cool experience. And yeah, so we had like our boat got stuck at one point. It took hours to get out of the swamp. Like we were like,
oh my God,
kind of like beached it and like had to go in the water and drag this thing. Crazy.
Oh my God, with all the crap out there, they got giant snakes and gators. Oh my God, man, that's nuts.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, and since then, I've after that experience, after Peru, I left Peru. I lived in Spain for like 3 years, and I've traveled all over. I've been to like 60 countries, and I've
Oh my
had a lot
God,
of
that's amazing.
backpacking, and like I have had many more adventures.
Yeah, and I'm sure you detailed all these adventures in your book, which I'm going to plug right now. It's called The Cage: Escaping the Dream, correct?
Escaping the American Dream.
Escaping the American Dream. And where can you get that book, or Rollie?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon?
It's available in like Kindle and print, whatever.
Okay.
All that stuff.
Awesome. I'm going to have to get a copy because I'm sure you got a ton of stories with like all your travels and stuff, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's the story of, you know, leaving my job to go fight in Peru. A lot of stuff I've talked about, and, you know, and some of the travels and my fights and all that stuff. And it lays out the, that whole story. I mean, it was a really, as I said, it was a hugely important, meaningful time in my life.
Yeah. Awesome. And you authored it yourself? You wrote it, and
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's just great.
Yeah, I'm really into, like, I love reading, and I've just been really into writing, and
yeah.
And so yeah.
My thing is a little insight from me. I'm big into screenplays. So like I got like published like, you know, like screenplays and stuff like that. So like writing's like therapeutic for me. I love writing.
Me too.
So I got,
and I've read, I mean, talk about screenplays. I've read, you know, Story by Robert McKee and Screenplay by Sid Field and Save the Cat and all this stuff. So I've read a lot of screenplay books too. I love the way that screenplays, it's just such a different medium, and I love the way it treats like the storytelling, the actual, you know, just
it shows you
telling a story. It breaks it down to its most like basic elements.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Because you got to cut the fat with a screenplay. It's like you got to think in terms of like showing the audience and stuff like that. But yeah, for sure, I love screenplays too. I got another deep question for you, Rollie. So biggest regret in life, or you know, or failure, something that you're like willing to share?
Man, that's hard. So many. I mean, like, you know, I think that one of the things that I learned from this whole process, and this is cliche because I just said I have a lot of, I do have a lot of regrets, but one of the things that I learned was that, and I wrote about this a little bit in my book, but like, you know, there were a lot of bad things that happened to me during that time. Like I said, I lost in my senior year of NCAs, and I cried, and it was like the end of the world. I thought like this is what I worked my whole life for, and I didn't get it. And, you know, I had a number of other things, like where I reached dead ends in life and had bad or traumatic experiences. And in the end, it was like, you know, without that stuff, it wouldn't have reached where I was. And so like, it was kind of cool to see the way that like the actual dominoes of life, like kind of knock it over. It's like, you know, if I had become an All-American in college, who knows where I would be? Like, it might have been something totally different. I wouldn't have had all these cool experiences. Maybe I would have been like happy or content, and I wouldn't have gone to Peru, you know, like, so it was weird, even though for years, I mean, it was really, it sounds a bit dramatic, but for years, like the fact that I didn't All-American was like really ate at me, and it was really like a tough thing. I almost couldn't talk about it. And, you know, after I wrote the book, I think it was interesting because I kind of took it like, it's like I carved a piece of flesh out of myself and like plopped it down and put it in the book. And it was like, it was gone after that. Like, it's kind of like, with cathartic, but also like to be able to get the meaning and to connect those dots, was really great to do.
So do you believe, the mindset kind of like everything happens for a reason?
I mean, I don't know. I think I could be convinced of that, but I also think that's a little bit like simplistic. It's like, you know, when something bad happens to you, it's not like it automatically means that something else is good. It's going to lead you in a good direction. It could lead you in like a total crap.
Yeah, a cascade of bad events.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it happens for a reason and it happens for some, like beneficent reason. But I think that, we have a little bit more agency than that. And like, I think that, it's helpful to take that view that, something bad happened, but it's part of the experience. It's part of the adventure. I think actually this is how I'll tie it together. So in all my travels and my adventures, when I look back on it, I think of my favorite stories and my favorite, like travel stories and adventures. And it's always like, man, I was stuck in the rain in this place on the side of the road somewhere, and I had to hitchhike, and I was hungry, and I hadn't eaten all day, and it was like terrible. And then like blah, blah, blah. And I lost my thing. And then like, when you look back on it, it's like, that's the fun part. That's the thing you remember.
Yeah.
Same way with wrestling or MMA or anything, you look back on you think about the really hard days you had in the room when you were so frustrated and you wanted to give up. And like, that's the meaning of it. You don't think about like the easy days.
Yeah.
You don't think of the days you took off. You think of the hard ones. And so, I mean, I think that, if you're able to take that sense of adventure, and I think that's something that I do now, is like when bad things are happening and everything's kind of falling down around me, I think like, okay, well, this is just part of the adventure, This is part of the story.
The journey,
Yeah, the journey. And so like, it's kind of like, it kind of flips on its head, and instead of saying like, oh, this is such crap, it's like, you kind of appreciate it in the moment, which you would eventually look back on it. But, to be able to actually do that in the moment is kind of cool. It'd be like, this is fun. Like, let's, while the world's falling down around you, you kind of smile. Like, I remember I was traveling a bit in Turkey when coronavirus hit. I was there for like a while, and I had to come home early, and it took me like 36 hours in flights through like, I had to go from like Izmir to Istanbul to Paris to whatever, and like, it was just, I was sleeping on the airplane.
That's crazy.
On the airport floor. And I just, like, to me, I was like, this is kind of fun.
Yeah.
It was like, this is kind of like the thing. This is it. This is why I do, this is why I travel. Like, I don't travel to go like sit in front of the Eiffel Tower and take a picture. Like, that's kind of cool, but like, it's the kind of, the bumps in the journey that are the fun parts. Yeah.
And all those like small little experiences along the way, right? Like people you meet and like, whatever instances you go through. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I've even done a few episodes of my podcast where I'm not even interviewing anyone. I just tell like some travel stories, and like, it's always those, like when I think about it, they're the bad ones or whatever, Yeah, totally. By the way, what's the name of your podcast, and where can people listen to it? So it's called the Divergent Path, and it's available on anywhere you get podcasts. Nice. And it's just about people that are doing different, interesting things, taking risks. I think like a lot of people see my story and they say, man, you're crazy. And I'm like, yeah, well, I meet a lot of people out there that are crazier than me doing cooler stuff. So I want to share their stories. I don't think you're crazy, man. I think you're just living. I think it's awesome. You had the guts to just do half of the things you've done. It's just absolutely wild. I just got a couple of more questions for you, Rollie. You've been so gracious with your time, man. Where do you see yourself within the next 5 years? Like any big plans or goals, or are you just kind of going where life takes you? I mean, I have no idea. Like, I wouldn't have what has happened to like the end of this. The end of the Peru journey was like 2005, so it was like 5 years ago. And since then, I've just like kind of been like all over the place. I went up in Spain for a few years. I was working at a hostel in Croatia. I was working as a tour guide in the United States. I was leading bus tours all over the United States. Like all the way from Seattle to LA. Then they fly me to New Orleans. I go New Orleans to New York, and then they go back to Vegas and go to the Grand Canyon and take up to Yosemite, Yellowstone, and like. So yeah, I mean that was a really awesome job I had. But like the thing is, I
I do a lot of crazy things, and I don't know where. It's kind of hard to say, and it's kind of like I've really let go of the reins and been okay with the uncertainty. I think the uncertainty drives other people crazy. I just like been able to live with it. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm doing my podcast now. I'm actually helping produce a few other podcasts. And so, you know, that has been really fun for me. It's been like a really cool way to connect with new people. And I'm like, it's just been like really great to talk to all new people. As you know, like podcast is fun. It's really cool to tool to connect with your people and
totally
learn new stories and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rollie, I have one more. I guess it's kind of a question, but so do you have like a final message for anyone kind of like stuck in the grind, like want to like chase something, a dream, something crazy, but they're scared to make the jump? What do you say to these people?
I would say that, yeah, I mean, this is something you encounter a lot. These are the kind of people most people I interview on my podcast are people who have done stuff like this, who have had a corporate job and decided to leave and do something different. And I would say, you know, the first thing is the mentality. Like I was saying, you know, I would say the first thing is change your like internal story to like, a lot of people say, one day when I have X, then I'll do Y. Mm-hmm. And I would not do that. Like I think that having that kind of like it'll happen in a few years kind of mentality is not efficient. I mean, it's not like something will always come up in that meantime. So like it's kind of like taking away the excuses. Like first of all, like there are a lot of excuses, you know, and you have a lot of excuses in your life all the time, and they're valid. Like that's the thing about excuses, is a lot of times they make a lot of sense. You know, like when I was thinking about leaving my job, it was like, well, I'm gonna really hurt my parents, and like it's true. It's not a false statement. It's true. Well, I'm gonna make a lot less money. That's true. I'm gonna have to make a lot of big lifestyle changes. They're all true. You know, so you know, acknowledging that. First of all, that you are going to have these excuses, and then, you know, like changing the dialogue and say, okay, I want to do this. What steps do I need to take to do it? So instead of saying, I can't do it because of X, Y, Z, you say, I'm going to do it, or I want to do it. What do I need to do? And then, you know, I think having a kind of plan, at least at the beginning, you know, helps, you know. It doesn't just happen overnight, but you got to kind of figure out, talk to people, and start laying the groundwork. I mean, this is like that you know, people talk about this crap with the secret and everything like that.
Yeah, law of attraction and
yeah, but like here's the thing, like that's like a kind of froofy way to say what I'm saying. It's just like saying like, okay, think about the goal you have, this end goal, keep it on your mind, and then start laying the groundwork to get there, as opposed to like most people, they just have this hazy like dream off in the future. But like think about like a more concrete thing. When you set a goal, make it like a distant goal, but something concrete. I want to move to Peru, you know, like, okay, now what do I do now that can get me there? What can I do? Do I have any contacts there? Can I reach out? Can I start sending some emails? Can I do this? Can I get a job? Can I will my company let me take a sabbatical? That's a big thing. A lot of companies, if I'm working remotely now, I mean, that's a big thing. Will my company let me work remotely? That's a big thing right now with COVID. I mean,
for sure.
You know, so many people that are, you know, just normal jobs are suddenly remote and probably will be remote for a long time. If you have an apartment in New York City and you're paying $2,000 a month, you go like, I mean, it's COVID, so travel's not a good thing right now. But, you know, you can make it work. These are excuses. You know, these are things. You could do it if you set your mind to it. You can go to another country and pay $500 a month, get a good internet connection, and go do your work from a different country and go have an adventure there.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm starting a remote job in December. COVID actually affected me like on a personal note, like, you know, all the layoffs and stuff like that. But You know, I'm okay. I feel bad for people that are not okay and still figuring things out. But yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But that's great advice, Rollie. I just want to thank you for doing this segment with me. It's been like a pleasure, man, and I really enjoy talking to you. And for the people listening, where can they reach you if they wanted to contact you?
Yeah, I mean, just, putting my name in Google is a good start. But you have a website, RolliePeterkin.com, and on like Instagram and Rollie Peterkin, Twitter. I don't really use Twitter that much, but yeah, it's pretty easy to find me.
Okay.
On the interwebs.
yeah, interwebs. And then once again, you have a book. It's on Amazon, The Cage: Escaping the American Dream, and your podcast, and that's on iTunes.
Yeah,
and all right, Rollie, thanks again, man. Have a great night, and once again, it's been a pleasure, man.
Thanks, you too, man.
Take it easy.